My parents showed up at my front door in Austin after 22 years of silence pounding, like they still owned the place. No apology, no tears, just, we want to see our grandchild. The same people who threw me out at 17 for being pregnant were now pretending to be family. I didn't raise my voice. I just opened the door, looked them in the eyes, and said, "What grandchild?" Their smiles froze before the truth did the rest. They thought they could rewrite history, claim what they abandoned. They had no idea the trap was already set. Before I tell you how I turned their greed against them, hit like and drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of justice like this can travel. I was 17 when my parents decided I no longer existed. I still remember the hum of the refrigerator that night, the smell of my mother's vanilla candle mixing with the sharp scent of my father's aftershave. The pregnancy test lay on the kitchen table, 2 pink lines that changed everything. Richard stood frozen for a moment before his voice cut through the air. "You're not bringing shame into this house." His tone was calm, but every word felt like a slap. My mother didn't scream, she didn't need to. She just reached over, turned the family photo face down, and said quietly, "Pack your things." I asked them if they even wanted to know how it happened, what I was going to do if I was scared. My father just checked his watch and said, "You have 10 minutes." The front door clicked behind me, and that sound has lived in my head ever since. I walked out into the Texas cold holding a backpack, a cheap coat, and a small silver necklace I'd bought at a flea market. That necklace is still around my neck today. Back then, it was the only thing that felt like mine. Tyler Brooks, my high school sweetheart, the boy who swore he loved me, stopped answering my calls 2 days later. His parents sent me a letter through their lawyer saying any contact would be considered harassment. I read it in the back booth of a diner, the ink blurring through my tears, and realized I wasn't just abandoned, I'd been erased. For weeks, I drifted through Austin like a ghost, slept in Zilker Park, showered at the community center when they'd let me. Every time a car passed, I half expected my mother to show up and say she'd changed her mind. She never did. One morning, an older woman stopped when she saw me sitting on a park bench, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. Her name was Eleanor Rhodes. She didn't ask for explanations. She just said, "You look cold. Come have breakfast with me." Her voice had the kind of authority that didn't need to be questioned. That morning over coffee, she told me something that would shape the rest of my life. When people throw you away, don't chase them. Build something so strong they choke on the sight of it. It wasn't comfort, it was a mission. I didn't know it yet, but that sentence was the first brick of everything I would become. It started with a letter that smelled like my mother's perfume, sweet, expensive, fake. Inside was a photo of a smiling family me at 17, framed between 2 people who disowned me. On the back, in her neat cursive, she'd written, "Let's put the past behind us. We want to meet our grandson." For a moment, I almost laughed. 22 years of silence, and suddenly I was worthy again now that they thought my son was worth something. I left the letter on my kitchen counter unopened after that first glance and went back to my schedule. My silence was my first move. 2 weeks later, the gifts started. A tablet engraved, "To Aiden Love," Grandma and Grandpa, a bouquet of lilies that made the house smell like a funeral. Every delivery came with a note about family and forgiveness. I sent each package back with a short line. "This brings back memories I'm not ready to revisit." I made sure my handwriting looked shaky, uncertain. Let them think I was fragile. People like them attack only what looks weak. Then came the online campaign. A lifestyle blog published a glowing piece about the Carters reunited, painting them as heartbroken parents reaching out to a cold, ungrateful daughter. They'd even used an old photo of me at my first hotel opening, cropped so I looked like part of their smiling clan. The comments were brutal. "She should be grateful. Family is family." I didn't reply. I just forwarded the link to Jade. Within hours, she traced the article to a PR firm my parents hired to repair their image. Tyler's return was next. He called from an unknown number, his voice smoother than I remembered. "I just want to make things right," he said. "Aiden deserves a real father figure." The nerve of it made my hands tremble. "You mean the kind that disappears when things get hard?" I asked quietly. He chuckled, thinking we were flirting. He had no idea I was recording every word. Behind the scenes, Jade's monitors lit up with alerts my parents were searching Texas family law, inheritance rights, and grandparent visitation claims. They weren't reaching out for love, they were building a legal strategy. I played along. Each "I'm not ready to talk" message from me made them push harder, convinced I was cracking. Richard started leaving voicemails about forgiveness, about how family legacy shouldn't be wasted on resentment. He forgot he'd once called my unborn child a stain. When their patience thinned, the manipulation turned public. Andrea posted a photo on Facebook, an empty chair at a dinner table, captioned, "We still set a place for her." Thousands of likes poured in, sympathy stacked up like ammunition. But the slip came from Richard. At a charity event streamed online, he stood before donors and said into a microphone, "No one should be denied the right to see their own grandchild." The audience applauded, unaware of the rot underneath. I watched that clip in my office, the same office I built from nothing. His voice was calm, righteous, practiced the exact tone he used the night he said, "You're not my daughter anymore." Only this time I smiled, slowly, deliberately. "Perfect," I whispered. "Let's give them exactly what they asked for, an audience." The night Richard's speech went viral, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened the old safe Eleanor had given me years ago. Inside were folders labeled like chapters of a book, Carter Estate Brooks Records Inheritance Law, Texas. I'd been patient for 2 decades. Now it was time to turn patience into a weapon. Eleanor had prepared me for this. Back when I worked in her office, she'd sit behind her mahogany desk, a cup of Earl Grey steaming beside her, and say, "Revenge isn't rage, it's timing. Rage burns quick. Timing burns clean." I didn't understand it then. I do now. The first move was legal. I called Samuel Barrett, the lawyer who'd handled Eleanor's will, and had since become both my confidant and partner. He didn't ask why I was ready. He just said, "I'll need every document they ever signed." His calm steadied me. We drafted airtight trusts and clauses confirming that anyone who had ever relinquished parental rights to me or any child of mine could never claim inheritance through association, a legal echo of their own cruelty. Then came the digital net. Jade Lyle set up monitoring tools that pinged whenever my parents searched my name or Aiden's. Within days, her screens were alive with data emails to PR agencies, private investigators, even Derek's "No Tyler's" messages about negotiating a settlement. We didn't stop them. We let them build their case brick by brick, every word a trap. I taught Aiden how to recognize manipulation. He was 12 sharp, curious, with the same quiet focus I'd learned from survival. If anyone tries to talk about family or legacy, I told him just smile and call me. He nodded already, sensing the weight behind my words. We planted bait through the tech world. Articles highlighting Aiden's innovative software for hotel optimization began circulating online. The story was true enough to be believable and exaggerated enough to lure them. Within a week, a courier arrived with another package from my parents, this time addressed to Aiden directly with a note, "Let's talk about your future." Perfect. Behind the scenes, Samuel and Jade worked in sync. Samuel built the legal wall, Jade built the digital cage. Every email, every message they sent was intercepted, archived, time-stamped. The more desperate they became, the more evidence they gifted us. When they finally filed for grandparent visitation and financial interest, Samuel just smirked. They've walked right into it. That night, I stood in the hallway of my hotel, the one I'd built from scratch, and watched guests check in under the warm glow of chandeliers. I touched the silver necklace at my throat, the one that once felt like a reminder of pain. Now it felt like armor. They'd thrown me out to protect their name. Soon that name would be the one dragged through every news outlet in Austin. The summit was 2 weeks away, and when the lights went up, the truth would hit harder than anything I could ever say. The Austin Tech Summit opened under a sky so bright it almost felt mocking. Inside the convention hall, spotlights swept across polished marble floors, cameras flashing as investors, founders, and press filled every seat. I stood backstage, hidden behind the curtain, watching my son Aiden adjust his blazer. He looked calm, poised, ready. I could see the reflection of the crowd in his glasses, hundreds of faces waiting to hear from him, not knowing this stage was more than a showcase. It was the battleground. "Mom," he whispered, tugging his sleeve. "You sure you're ready for this?" I smiled. I've been ready for 22 years. On stage, his introduction echoed through the hall. "Please welcome Aiden Carter, lead developer of Atlas Systems." Applause erupted. My heart didn't race. It steadied. This was the sound of everything I'd built, everything they'd tried to destroy. He started his presentation about loyalty innovation and what it meant to build systems that don't fail people. His voice carried the kind of confidence I used to fake when I was 17. Then right on cue, the screens behind him shifted. The lights dimmed. The air snapped still. The next slide read, "Family isn't blood, it's choice." The crowd murmured. In the front row sat Richard, Margaret, and Tyler, dressed like they belonged there, smiling for cameras, pretending to be proud family. I stepped onto the stage. The applause stuttered, then stopped. My heels clicked against the floor, steady, deliberate. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice cutting through the hush. I wasn't planning to speak today, but since family's such a popular topic lately, every lens turned toward me. My parents' smiles faltered. 22 years ago, I said two people decided their reputation mattered more than their daughter's life. They threw her out pregnant and alone. She lost everything, her home, her safety, her child. But she built something stronger. The first photo appeared behind me, a teenage girl in a faded coat, standing in front of a dark house door, shut tight. Then came the document, blown up larger than life, bearing my parents' signatures. "We, Richard and Margaret Carter, relinquish all parental rights to our daughter, Emily Carter, and any offspring born or unborn." Gasps rippled through the room. My father's face went gray. My mother clutched her pearls like prayer beads. "You wanted the public's attention," I said, turning toward them. "Here it is." Jade's signal came through the monitor in my earplay, file 1. The screen flickered again, showing a video message from Eleanor Rhodes, recorded before her passing. She sat in her study, elegant as ever, eyes sharp. People who discard their own blood always think they can come back when it's convenient. Eleanor's voice rang out. They forget that time doesn't heal what it never tried to protect. Emily built her legacy from nothing. She owes you nothing. The room fell silent. Next came the emails projected in sequence. From Richard Carter to PR strategy team. Subject: public sympathy angle. If we emphasize the family angle and highlight the grandson's success, public pressure might soften her stance. Then a text exchange between Tyler and my mother. "Tyler, she'll cave if we push emotional guilt. She's still weak about that miscarriage. Margaret, do it. We need access before she locks the trust fund." The audience gasped again. Phones came up, cameras recording. My father stood, his voice shaking. "This is out of context," I cut him off. "Context." I stepped closer, the spotlight catching the chain around my neck. "The context is, you drove me to bleed on a bathroom floor while you called me an embarrassment. The context is you didn't want a grandchild until you thought you could profit from him." Margaret's lip trembled. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear. "Aiden," I said softly, turning to my son, "tell them who you are." He stepped forward, steady as a grown man. "I'm adopted," he said into the mic. "She saved me. She taught me family isn't blood, it's who shows up." That line broke the room. The crowd stood, some clapping, some frozen, as reporters scrambled for angles. Then Samuel Barrett, my lawyer, walked up the stage stairs, a folder in hand. For the record, he announced, voice calm and clear, "These individuals have filed false claims under Texas family law, attempting to seize financial control of assets and exploit a minor under fabricated kinship." He held up the signed papers. Effective immediately restraining orders have been issued for Richard and Margaret Carter and Tyler Brooks. They are barred from contacting Emily or Aiden Carter. Security began moving down the aisles. Cameras followed as Richard tried to argue, shouting that this was a setup. "You can't do this," he barked. I looked at him, this man who once told me I was nothing, and said quietly into the mic, "Watch me." The lights brightened, exposing everything. Security escorted them out through a sea of murmuring guests. Someone yelled, "Is it true?" Another called, "How could you abandon her?" My mother's face was pale as paper. Tyler kept his head down. I didn't move until the doors closed behind them. Then I turned back to the audience. "They taught me that love has limits," I said. "So I built a life without theirs. If you've ever been told you're not enough, prove them wrong by thriving." Applause started slow, then roared. People stood cheering, some wiping tears. Cameras flashed like lightning. Aiden reached for my hand, squeezing it once. We walked off stage together. In the hallway, away from the noise, he whispered, "Does it feel over?" I shook my head. It's not about ending, it's about balance. Outside news vans lined the street, headlines already forming. Carter scandal. Justice for Emily, family is choice. For the first time in decades, I felt the weight lift, not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped carrying what wasn't mine. By the next morning, the footage from the summit had gone viral. Every major network replayed the moment my parents were escorted out, their faces twisted under the fluorescent lights. Commentators called it the Carter collapse. Hashtags trended for days. Within a week, the fallout hit hard. 3 of my father's real estate partners withdrew their contracts, citing ethics concerns. Their company's stock dropped 15% overnight. Anonymous leaks. "Thank you, Jade," surfaced screenshots of his private messages calling me a marketing liability. Investors fled like rats from a sinking ship. My mother tried to issue a public apology filmed in their living room, voice trembling through rehearsed regret. "We only wanted to reconnect with our daughter," she said, dressed in pearl earrings and lies. The internet didn't buy it. Comment sections flooded with rage. "You disowned her. You don't get to claim her now." Within hours, the video had more dislikes than views. Tyler's spiral was messier. His emails to my parents, those same ones about manipulating me, had caught the attention of the IRS. Turns out, hiding money offshore while applying for federal grants is a bad idea. Samuel's contacts tipped off the right people. Within a month, Tyler was under investigation for tax fraud and identity misrepresentation. He went silent after that. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding something better. The Eleanor Rhodes Foundation opened its first center downtown, offering housing and job programs for single mothers. At the ribbon-cutting, cameras flashed again, but this time it wasn't scandal they were capturing. It was redemption. Samuel stood beside me, calm and steady as always. When the crowd quieted, he turned, pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and smiled. "You've built everyone else's home," he said softly. "Maybe it's time to build your own." The crowd gasped when I said yes. That night, after the guests left, I walked through the empty hall. The air smelled like fresh paint and promise. I touched the silver necklace still hanging at my throat. For years, it had reminded me of loss. Now it felt like proof that I'd survived it. Some nights, I still hear that door click, the sound of being cast out. But now when it echoes in my mind, I picture another door opening, the one I built myself. If you've ever been told you're not enough, remember this: your worth doesn't need their approval. Build your peace and let them watch from the outside. Hit like, share this story, and tell me where you're watching from.